Good evening, everyone. At this time, we will call the meeting to order. We will begin with the flag salute. At this time, we'll begin with roll call. She will be on the way. We received notification that she's probably going to be running about 15, 20 minutes behind.
Turn that on. Commissioner Sanchez?
Present.
Commissioner Quill?
Here.
Commissioner Lang?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Present.
Commissioner Wolbert?
Here.
Commissioner Durr? Okay. Commissioner Ruiz? Oliver Mujica?
Almost here. Yes, here.
Vice Chair Daley is excused. We have quorum.
Thank you. Moving forward, the administration of oath. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on any public comments or items not on the agenda? Okay, we'll have you sworn in at this time.
All right, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say, I do. I do. Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. Moving forward, there is no closed session, so we will be skipping that. Public comments for items that are not placed on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to speak on a matter that is not on the agenda tonight? Okay. Moving forward, we are going to open up the consent calendar. For the consent agenda, consent items are considered routine in nature and may be enacted in one motion. All public and non-public hearing items will be opened at one time. Any item may be discussed separately or upon request of a member of the Planning Commission or a member of the public. Does the staff have the consent calendar?
Good evening, Commissioners. This evening on the consent calendar, we have one item. It is for the approval of the minutes for our meeting that was conducted on November the 13th of 2018. They are complete as presented. Our recommendation is for approval. Thank you.
Chair, just wanted to note on the record that I wasn't at that meeting, so I won't be voting on that consent item.
Okay.
Thank you.
Does the Commission have any questions for staff in regards to the consent agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Seconded.
We need a motion on the floor first. So if we'll have Commissioner Sanchez make a motion for the agenda, we'll need a second.
I'll make a motion for the amendment or the approval of the draft minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to the public hearing items. The Planning Commission will first hear a report from staff, and then the public hearing will be opened. The applicant will have the opportunity to speak. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak must be sworn in and also fill out a speaker request form. The forms are located near the table by the door. When your name is called, come forward, speak into the microphone, and give your name and address for the taped record. After all have spoken, the applicant will be allowed to respond. The public hearing will then be closed, and the Planning Commission will begin deliberations and make a decision. All actions except general plan amendments and amendments to the municipal code are final unless an appeal is filed and a fee is paid within 15 days to the Community Development Department. If you challenge the result of the Planning Commission in court, you may be limited to only raising those issues in the agenda or in written correspondence delivered to the Community Development Department at or before the public hearing. I hereby open public hearing item number 2. Can we please have the staff report?
Yes, Chairman and Commissioners. Item number 2 is a request for conditional use permit number 16-20. It is for the property located at 1293 West 5th Street. It's basically on the corner of 5th Street and Mount Vernon Avenue. The request is for to expand an existing nightclub. They currently have approximately 5,900 square feet. What they want to do is there's an adjoining building that they want to convert to create the expansion, which would be a total of approximately 9,400 square feet. The overall site is approximately 3/4 of an acre, and it's with what's known as the Las Placitas Specific Plan Area, and which the development standards that govern that would be from the CG1 zone. Next slide, please. Just as a little bit of a background, so the building on the corner, which is in this slide, which is painted yellow, is the existing nightclub. It's been there since 2005. The buildings themselves, they're two separate buildings. The gray one that's on the easterly side, both buildings were constructed in the 40s. And so the applicant purchased the property, the adjoining building a couple years ago. And what he did is came into the city, he goes, why don't you expand it? There used to be a series of other uses that had been there, so he wanted to expand the nightclub. Because of the age of the buildings, they were constructed at different times, different times in the 40s. We brought in the fire department inspectors as well as a building official to look at both buildings as to the feasibility of merging those two structures. They both had, just the way the foundations were set up and the roof lines and so forth, just wanted to make sure before that they proceeded with any improvements or request that it would be feasible to construct. So it took the applicant and the engineers and such somewhere between 9 months to a year to work out the structural details and the analysis and so forth. There's requirements for fire sprinkling, and again, it's a lot of technical research was done for both buildings and to see whether or not it would work. So ultimately, we were able to meet that compliance, and the Development and Environmental Review Committee, including the Building Safety and Fire, had reviewed it. And we, from a structural standpoint, what we'd like to do in the department is look at whether or not the project is feasible from a construction or development standpoint, rather than just saying, well, we approve it, go figure it out later, comply with the standards. We wanted to make sure that they can comply before we proceeded. So that's essentially what took the better part of a year and a half, to get to this point from that standpoint. Next slide, please. The project, as proposed with the expansion, as we reviewed it, is consistent with our general plan policies and complies with our development code as it relates to standards, parking, and such. It also conforms with our regulations from the city's alcohol business requirements. Because the property had been there for a while and been operating, it falls under what's currently the deemed approved ordinance for alcohol-related uses. If you've been familiar with some of those long-standing alcohol establishments in town, they've kind of, I don't like to use the word grandfathered, but there's a new ordinance that's covering them. Because the expansion is more than 10% as outlined in our code, if you don't have a conditional use permit, you're required to receive one. And so that's because of the amount and extent of the expansion, that required the new conditional use permit. So the project does meet those guidelines. We've included conditions of approval that addresses alcohol-related uses such as this one. We've also believed that with the expansion and the conversion of the existing building, that it will eliminate this blighted structure that has been long-standing there. And we also, it's within the allowable concentration for ABC licenses, which I'll show you later on. The concentration level is six licenses for that census tract, which is Census Tract 49, I believe. So it falls within that. The police department has also reviewed the property. They've provided their memo and their analysis that's been attached in your report. They've forwarded a recommendation of approval. There's been no issues on that property as long as this operator's been there. And again, their recommendation is also subject to our including those conditions as we put in the resolution. Next slide, please. And this is showing the zoning for the property. Again, it's within the Los Paseos specific plan, and so and it's again surrounded by the similar zoning. The next slide is the aerial photograph. So we have that's the site as the report indicated. The overall property is comprised of 4 separate parcels. So if you're looking at the slide there, the site is in the red rectangle. The larger building sits on one property. The adjacent structure, which is the subject of the expansion, is on another property. And the parking lot is essentially 2 separate parcels. So as part of this, it'll all be merged into one project. So we have the rail yards to the south, and then we have commercial uses on the other 3 sides. And that's 5th Street is on the street that's going from left to right on the top of the slide, and the street that running on the left hand of this property is Mount Vernon. Next, please. This is following will be a series of slides showing the property. So this is looking east on 5th Street. Again, where we have the subject property is on the right-hand side. Next is looking west on 5th Street with the subject property on the left-hand side. There you can see the sign that says Pepe's there on the corner. So that's the location. The next slide will be looking on Mount Vernon towards the north. And then the next slide will be Mount Vernon looking south. Next slide. This is the site plan. So again, as indicated, the 2 structures, there will be 2 buildings. There are 2 separate buildings now that would be converted into one structure, and the parking lot to the right-hand side there. Next, please. This is the floor plan. Again, so you have the dance and assembly in what would be the existing structure, and then we have the kitchen, restroom facilities, and some other seating area on the part that's going to be as part of the conversion. We have the elevations would be the next slide. The next slide is in the report we talked when we addressed the parking requirements. The properties or this nightclub is required to have 95 parking spaces, off-street parking spaces. There are currently 51 that are provided on site. We have required the applicant to get approval from one of the neighboring properties, which is the center to the northwest of the site across 5th Street. So there is consideration for 65 spaces to be provided there, so that to address the parking requirements. So that's a proximity. I believe it's approximately 350 feet from as you cross, crosswalks, go up and across whichever way. So it's between 300 to 400 feet walking distance. The next slide. This is the boundary as delineated with the black border line. That's the census tract boundary, which is for census tract 49.00, and it lists the 6 on-site alcohol license within the census tract. The area that's encircled, and you see the triangle with the 1 and the square with the 2, that circle delineates a 1,000-foot radius. The next slide will show that in closer. So that's where. So the number 2 is the Copacabana, which the commission approved. I believe it was a couple of years ago, which is another nightclub which has they're going under new construction. They're moving forward with that as well. The next slide, please. Again, that concludes my brief presentation. I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have those. We have the applicant is here in the audience as well. Our recommendation is that the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 2018-071, finding the categorical exemption for the project and approving conditional use permit 16-20 based on the findings of fact and subject to conditions of approval. Be glad to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff at this point?
Just a quick question. Mr. Oliver, I believe you mentioned that a lot merger would be required to merge those lots into
Correct.
one single lot.
That's correct.
And I was trying to find the conditions of approval that would require that, if you would help me out, to make certain that we have a condition of approval that would trigger that requirement to complete the processing of the lot merger.
If I can't find it, if you don't mind, we could make sure that we include it as a recommendation, as part of the
Yes.
recommendation.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. And while you mentioned that, I did also want to include a condition requiring that the applicant maintain the agreement with that adjoining property owner for the off-site parking up on the other side of Fifth. So those two we would like to add.
That's a good one. Thank you.
Any other questions from the commission for staff?
Yes, I had a few questions. The added section, what will it be used for? Will it be, just an expansion for the entertainment? Is it going to be kind of somewhere that could be rented for like other uses, or?
It's all part of the same activities.
Okay.
If we can maybe go back a few slides to the floor plan, essentially, right there. So for most of us, the little shape in the middle kind of looks like a fireplace. That little C there, that's essentially where the dividing line. I wouldn't want to say dividing line, but that's where the two buildings are separated today. And so those floors are going to be, there's going to be some steps and combined, so forth. But the restroom facilities, as you see on the upper right-hand corner, those are new. Those are restrooms for men and women. Then you'll see the long rectangular room that's on the extreme right-hand side of the exhibit. That's going to be a new storage area for their chairs and whatever they supplies and things. And then their kitchen area is going to be on that lower portion. If you see there's the kitchen for that. So they don't necessarily serve full on meals. For their Type 47 permit, there just needs to be food, which would be appetizers and those kinds of things. So they don't have necessarily a large full-scale commercial kitchen. And so essentially that's the expansion. And then the bar, you'll see it's on kind of in the middle, the bottom center. That's the bar. There's going to be some brief modifications to it, but most of the work is to the right-hand side of the structure. The restrooms now are on the upper part of the existing nightclub, and they're just flipping them over for a larger entertainment area.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had actually a few more questions. For condition number 1 in the conditions of approval, it says that there'll be lighting while the establishment is open in the exterior, like in the parking lots and such. Could we maybe amend that to have it on more regularly? I know it is a commercial area, but having that light could help, maybe law enforcement if any activity happens in that area. The Santa Fe is right there, maybe, helping out for the community with that, just having maybe a lit area somewhere safer if someone is walking in that section of town.
Okay, so it's listed as a condition number 1 within the staff report, and then in the resolution, it's listed as on page 7 as condition number 15. So you would like to add language to
Possibly have it on maybe a little more regularly than rather just on the days that the establishment is
So like
open,
during the
I
week?
mean. Mhm, during the week with that.
During the week, nighttime
Maybe
hours?
nighttime with that, yeah, nighttime hours with that. Just for the safety of maybe, the neighboring area, just precautions like that.
So okay, I would also, along those lines, they also have a requirement for surveillance cameras outdoors, and maybe that's something that we might want to encourage to keep, or require to keep on, so 7 days a week.
That'd be perfect.
So that we don't have people hanging out there on Wednesday night when they know that the
The
business
club
owners
is
are going.
closed and everything, yes.
So do we have a consensus of what time? So we say like 8 to 5 in the morning, 6 in the, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I don't know what's a reasonable,
Yeah,
Dusk-
a dusk to dawn thing, that would be good, like
is that
that.
fine?
Yeah, just, protection, and also, it'll help kind of prevent maybe crime happening in the area.
And the applicant is here. I don't know if you have any questions of him, but if you don't, if we could maybe confirm that they would be okay with those two conditions. I'm sure he will.
I actually had a few more things, sorry. But,
Don't worry, there's no limit. Larry will give you some of his questions.
Perfect. They said that there's a prohibited vegetation, keeping it low like that, making sure that, no hiding places. But will there be, with this addition like that, will there be vegetation, make it look a little
We
like,
are going to put landscaping along Fifth Street
Oh, okay.
between the
Perfect.
sidewalk and the parking lot.
Wonderful, okay.
And then it won't be tall, it'll be low shrub.
It'll be low, okay.
Yes.
And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, is there a color palette for the building? From the images, we have a bright yellow, and I noticed,
It's going to be that same yellow.
okay.
I don't recall what color yellow that is, but it's,
It is quite bright, and I mean, we're trying to move like the city into maybe something beautiful, nice like that, maybe something a little nicer, maybe a softer palette, maybe something that we can kind of talk or discuss about like that.
are you looking for is the yellow bit a different hue, or?
Maybe a different hue, something that's a little easier on the eyes. We're trying to make, the city something beautiful and new and going in that direction, so we're hoping that maybe something
Charmaine,
that could be...
Would you mind going back to maybe slide 4, I think, that showed the existing building?
Because I've passed this building before,
No,
and
now keep-
from one view, it does kind of look white, and then from another view, it's quite bright.
Okay, let's see, one more forward, not the other way. Yeah, go towards the beginning. I guess
Yeah.
forward means back.
Kind of see.
Maybe go towards the beginning, Charmaine, maybe? One more, maybe? Keep going. More, please. More. More. Keep going. Oh, we're going in the wrong direction, I'm sorry. My other left. Go towards the beginning. There's that, but I think the first slide, I think it's the third slide that shows the kind of looking east on, one more, keep going. Like that there. Maybe it's kind of like a mustard color.
Yeah,
So
it's a bright mustard.
So you want it softer?
Maybe something softer, a nicer kind of more neutral palette. And I see kind of buildings that are kind of all colors of the rainbow. So I'm hoping that the buildings will be kind of toned down a bit, be a little more pleasing to the eye, and having the signs not be painted onto walls, but actual.
You want
Letters.
channel letters or can signs?
Exactly,
Okay.
something that's not, painted.
So we have a condition where sign permits are a separate application for us. It's a staff level review. And so that's something that we can keep in mind, requiring those, the channel or the can sign, if that's allowed in that area kind of a thing. If you'd like, we could, looking at the condition where it talks about which plans are included, or maybe in condition number 2 where it talks about the exhibits include the site plan, floor plan, and exterior elevations. I don't know if we want to insert some language in there and say that the color of the structure shall be subject to review and approval by the community development director or something like that.
That'd be great, yeah. Just having like maybe some regulations on colors so that,
Okay.
it'd be a little nicer. Thank you.
Are you done? I'm sorry. I just want to agree with Commissioner Sanchez, because I think those of us who have lived here in the city long enough, we know that corner used to be the famous Cocky Cactus. And it was a pretty good eatery, I understand, and sometimes celebrities on their way to Palm Springs stop. So it's a famous corner.
Okay.
And the mustard yellow, we don't want it to look like an adult bookstore. Excuse me for saying that, but we
That's
don't
okay.
want that. And it should be something that is a nice color. I was also going to ask about the signage instead of just the painting, you know, and where the main entrance was going to be, where it is now, or since you're expanding, is it going to be
The
where
entrance
the parking lot is going to be?
It's in the
Okay.
back, yes.
Okay. The other question that I have is, right now, I think behind Pepe's, there is a driveway for entering and exiting and the parking in the back. And it's my understanding that the bridge, the viaduct, is going to be expanded starting, I think they're going to start knocking it down the latter part of 2019. Is that going to, because my understanding is they're going to make it longer and wider.
We did receive some correspondence on that in terms of potential right-of-way dedication, you know, if you will, because of that widening. It actually did not go that far down
Okay.
to reach this property. The only thing that they talked about is a possibility, but but they clarified that it wouldn't be necessarily, is that they may need some area for staging, i.e., you know, store equipment or materials or those kinds of things. But after conversations with the legal team that they had working on that, they confirmed that there was actually
That was going to be okay,
it was
because
going
I
to be
think the
okay.
anticipation is it's going to be more traffic.
I remember for the applicant coming into my office one morning with this letter, kind of frantic, what does this mean, kind of a thing. And so we were able to clarify that.
And if the applicant is here, if we can ask him if he's not in, or she's not in opposition of making the building look kind of nice, seeing that he would not be expanding if it wasn't for the purpose of entertainment and, you know, social
Right.
recreation and that type of thing. Would they consider a change in the color,
we can-
signage, and so forth?
We can call them up if you'd like.
Yes,
Mr.
please,
Olmos.
come forward.
And
Glad
smi-
you are here.
And smile because it is televised.
Are you Pepe? Are you? Oh,
If you
okay.
could introduce yourself.
Oh. Okay. Okay. As I said, those of us who have lived here long enough in the city remember that because of the Route 66, that was a pretty well-traveled corner intersection. And Pepe's used to be the Coffee Cactus, which was a restaurant that was pretty well. And we love that you're interested in expanding and doing all kinds of things with it, but we want it to be a shiny spot, you know, in terms of the painting of the building, the signage. I think the reason why you're expanding is because your business is growing and you want to attract even more business. I can't see a better way to have it look, you know,
Absolutely.
pretty nice, exceptional. Is that something that the applicant is
Well,
willing
First
to
and
consider
foremost,
with the design?
I see the business as home. I call it referred as my personal home,
Mhm.
and that's how I maintain it.
Okay.
You walk in any time during the week, it's spotless.
Mhm.
I personally maintain it myself. I do the work. I sweep the streets. I have a team of maintenance crews. But Virginia Marcus also mentioned the color. I do recall when I first purchased the property. It was a strenuous time. The city was not as prosperous as it is now, if you want to call it that. The corner was in tatters. We had 3 years of just losses. It was just hard times. My father had medical issues. But we stayed. We had faith in our business in the city. We kept growing. The color, I just grew to appreciate it. But if you desire to change it, we'll be happy to do it. I'll let it go if you choose to. In the beginning, we didn't have money for marketing and promotion as we do now. It was just the yellow corner on the building. That was my promotion, and that's Pepe's. But yeah, I'll be happy to let it go. I want to stay with the city. I want to grow with the city. Everyone always questions, why are you going from LA County to San Bernardino County? Why are you doing that, Fernando? Stay with us. Stay in Hollywood where we have our other location. Don't go to San Bernardino. It's terrible out there. I'm like, no. I have faith. My dad actually saw the vision. When we first walked into Rubens, he walked in, he goes, this is this place. And next thing you know, we started escrow in 30 days. It took us a while to close escrow, but we did it. We stretched the rubber band, and we kept expanding and chipping away and remodeling and stayed with the city. And we want to stay here for many years now. I mean, I don't want to go back to LA. I want to stay in San Bernardino County, if you allow me to, please. Anything else, Ms. Sanchez, you'd like to ask me?
No, I really wanted to commend you guys on, expanding and actually making this work.
Yeah.
I know a lot of places that try and it kind of falls apart a little bit, and but thank you for staying. And you're growing with the city. We're all going in
Thank you.
hopefully a brighter direction.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a nice place, so we're just hoping that the color will kind of reflect your new image of kind of, we're expanding, we're making something.
If you like, there's
bright and new.
the Dunwoods is located in Colton. We can stop by Starbucks, we could have coffee, we can walk over to Dunwoods and we can pick the color out together if you choose.
That can happen.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so I just wanted to do, the light, it's also
Yes.
protection for the building.
Absolutely.
So, we have the surveillance already in place, that you're putting in.
Yes.
It's going to have greenery, that it's going to make a nice corner again. It's going to
Yes.
be a beautiful structure. So we're just hoping that everything will go together.
Absolutely.
So thank you for being amendable.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to comment. I'd like to compliment you on hanging in there through the city, working with the city. It looks like your application was submitted back in 2016.
Yes.
And Oliver did mention that there were a lot of, they visited the site frequently and
Yes.
did some things. So putting my Chamber of Commerce hat on, we really appreciate you guys that want to work and stay here and make your home here in San Bernardino.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for your effort.
I actually do, I recognize Mr. Liang from many years ago. Mr. Liang, thank you for staying with the city also.
It's good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
Does the commission have any further questions for the applicant? Commissioner?
Yes. On security, in lieu of something that's happened here recently in the city, or in the state, the cameras, officers, are the officers armed, or are they, the security officers, are they armed, or, and basically, how many, and relative to the occupancy load, how have you addressed that?
My security company is California Force Patrol. They reside in the city of Colton. That's the corporate headquarters. On Friday and Saturdays, I have a total of 9 security guards. 2 are armed always with carry also vests, Kevlar, extra precautions. We haven't had any incidents, any major scuffles, little fist fight every now and then, but as for, I guess you could say shootings or stabbings, none of that. I am personally there to run the business, and I feel that I even started giving away on the way out. We have a jar of candy, little Hershey bars, little candies, and I just got to shake everyone's hand and say thank you. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for coming to Pepe's. And little by little, I've just grown to know my customers' names, and they all just say hi and thank you. I'm like, no, contrary, thank you for supporting me. If I grow, the city grows with me. I want everyone to grow with me. We all have to be on the same ship if we continue the path together. That is my desire. But yes, sir, we do have lighting. Actually, we were on the timer, and my timer, I have it from 5:30 p.m. to 5 a.m., 7 days a week. And I do have 24-hour surveillance cameras on site. But I will be adding also to around the adjoining structure. So I have a good IT team also.
So at the peak, you're going to have, what, 2 or 4 officers?
No, total of 9, sir. Oh, good question. I haven't really thought about that. I've just been so focused on getting approved. But yes, I would definitely obtain more securities. Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Does the commission have any further questions for the applicant at this time?
Mr. Chair, if I may, If the commission still wants to do this, this would be the appropriate time to ask the applicant to agree to 3 additional conditions of approval. Number 1, that a lot merger be an additional condition of approval. Number 2, that the applicant agrees to maintain the agreement with the other closest nightclub for additional parking. And that number 3, the applicant agrees to have the lights of the business on during weekdays from dusk until dawn.
That would be for lighting and surveillance,
Correct.
and then also the color of the building.
Would you be willing to accept those conditions as stated by the council, sir?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let the record reflect we'll be adding those conditions to agenda item number 2. Also, let the record reflect that Commissioner Lopez arrived at 6:09, and she's here and actively participating in this agenda. So,
Thank you.
does the applicant have any other comments that they would like to say before we move forward?
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your attention to this matter at hand. I appreciate you and your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item?
I handed my slip in.
Okay. What's your last name, sir?
Strange.
Perfect. This time we'll have Mr. Strange please come to the mic. Please state your name and address for the taped record, sir.
My name is Colin Strange, 546 West 6th Street. That is the offices of the Chamber of Commerce. I am the Director of Business Resources for the Chamber of Commerce, of which Pepe's Nightclub is a member of the Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to take your time. I just want to give support on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce to this business. There are a couple of things in the staff report that maybe you don't know about this business because they were not there and they would not normally be in the staff report. But that corner is one of the best kept corners, color or no color, in terms of maintenance and cleanliness, I think, on the west side. And I think they need to be complimented for that. 6 people depend on their livelihood from this business, and this is going to increase, I think, by at least another 40%. So it's nice to see employment opportunities happening on the west side. The business has, as you know, been in existence since 2006, and I'd just like to finish off with the fact that you most probably don't know, but the Olmos family are very generous contributors to local charities within San Bernardino, and I mean generous local contributors, especially for those charities that are tied some way or other to law enforcement. So I hope you'll consider this application favorably. I see the recommendation is to adopt, and I thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Mr. Penman?
James Penman, 221 East Marshall Boulevard, San Bernardino, formerly for over 10 years, 839 North Mount Vernon, which is 3 blocks north of the, to me, it'll always be the Cocky Cactus. I had my first Shirley Temple there when I was about 8 or 9 years old. I was living at 1898 Davidson at that time. You probably guessed why I'm here, because Pepe's is a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and it's a business that is very much interested in investing in our community. They have done a good job of maintaining the premises. Cocky Cactus is just, I mean, when I think back, my first Shirley Temple and everything was a great place, and I'm glad to see that the people who are taking it over are going to try to continue that tradition. It is one of the prime intersections in San Bernardino. The old Route 66, as you know, came east on 5th Street and turned north on Mount Vernon right there. And we all went to the Cocky Cactus when we could afford it back in the 50s and 60s. And we can use a venue of this type on the city's west side and certainly use it at 5th and Mount Vernon, and we hope that you'll support it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other members of the public wishing to speak on this item? All right. I have a question for staff. How far is the distance from the additional proposed parking lot to the actual entrance of the building?
From the, Charmaine, would you mind going to the aerial there? So from the corner, right at the southeast corner of Fifth and Mount Vernon, the upper left hand of the square there where the site is, if you walked west. If you walked west on Fifth Street, then crossed the street there where the gas station is, and then walked across, that distance there is about 296 feet. I said 300, approximately 300. It's about 300 from corner to corner. I'm going to guess the length of the building at an additional, 75 feet or so, and then we're probably talking about from door. If you walked around from the door and around to that corner, you're probably looking at about 100 feet. So I'm going to estimate that it's going to be somewhere between 450 feet maybe from the door, which is at the back of the parking lot. If you walked around up the sidewalk, crossed and went up. Does that make sense?
Yes, and also, is there going to be additional surveillance and security available in the parking lot as well?
We can require, if the commission desires, to require a parking security guard at that location as well.
Well, I think it wouldn't be necessary, especially since they're leasing the property from somebody else to occupy that space. It would seem like it would create a liability for the businesses in that area. Unless it's not deemed as a problem, then I don't think it should be an issue, but it was just a concern that I saw.
It may be something for the commission to consider, only because those, the businesses that are there are primarily daytime, and so essentially, at the nightclub, you're looking at folks coming out of there midnight, thereabouts, and at that time there won't be anyone in any of those businesses there, so it'll be a vacant parking lot. So maybe that's something that we would consider, that some kind of security be provided, at least in the closing hours, to monitor activity in that parking lot once the nightclub closes, if that's something you want to consider.
Perfect. And the agreement for the additional parking space, I saw that there was a letter attached from Buena Coin Laundry.
That's the property owner of the property.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question.
Yes.
Were they subleasing it from another tenant, or, okay.
No, that's the property owner, and he also owns the laundromat.
And also, from the proposed map I'm seeing, they're going to be crossing an intersection to get across to the actual structure from the parking lot. Are the traffic signals timed to accompany large amounts of people crossing the street during and coming from those events during those times? Will that be adjusted for the increased capacity during that time, or how will that work?
That has not been contemplated. I don't know how we would address that, what the timing is on that, but that's something we could look into. I don't know if there's an appropriate. I mean, again, we're looking at the late evening hours, and so I don't know. I don't anticipate that there's that many cars traveling up and down the street, but we're open to suggestions as well.
Right. Yeah. No, just the concern, because I know it's going to be late at night. Some people are going to be drinking or buzzed, leaving or exiting the club. It may pose a potential hazard. That's why I was just curious about the timing. I don't know if that's an engineering issue that would have to be worked out, or what would remedy that, if it needs remedy, but just a comment. Does the commission have any further questions for staff or the applicant at this time? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I would recommend you just formally close the public comment period.
Okay. Thank you, counsel. At this time, we're going to formally close public comments, and we will entertain a motion.
I would make a motion that the Planning Commission adopt resolution number 2018-071, approving conditional use permit 16-220, based on the findings and facts and subject to the recommendations and conditions of approval, and findings that the project is categorically exempt under the California Environmental Quality Act, and also to include the conditions that were adopted this evening.
That is okay.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Moving on, agenda item number 3, conditional use permit 18-12 and public convenience or necessity letter 18-05. I hereby open public hearing for agenda item number 3. Can we please have the staff report?
Yes, Chairman and Commission. This item, we actually going to need to request a continuance. We've received some correspondence from Caltrans related to some mitigation or conditions that be included or suggested. We'd like an opportunity to meet with them. We received their correspondence at the beginning of this week on Monday, and so we haven't had a chance to address that. We are going to meet with Caltrans, I believe, on the 27th of December. And so with that, I'd like to ask that you continue this item to the next meeting, which would be January the 8th, 2019. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to continue agenda item number 3.
Mr. Chair, sorry if I may. Before we get to that, this would be the appropriate time to allow members of the public to comment since this item was publicly noticed already.
Thank you, Council. Are there any members of the public that would wish to comment on agenda item number 3? I see no members of the public. We will proceed. I'd like to make a motion to continue agenda item number 3 to the next Planning Commission regular meeting of January 8th, 2019. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on, agenda item number 4, Development Permit Type P 18-05, a request to allow the development and establishment and operation of a 73-unit multifamily housing development containing approximately 32,529 square feet with the construction of on-site and off-site improvements of 5 parcels containing a total of approximately 2.62 acres. This project is located on the south side of Commercial Road, approximately 700 feet east of South Waterman Avenue. At this time, we're going to open agenda item number 4. Can we please have the staff report?
Yes. Before I continue with the staff report, I just wanted to make sure that we did get a public comment letter. I think Oliver's passing that out now. If you'd like to read through that as I go through the report. So item number 4 is Development Permit Type P 18-05, a request to allow the development, establishment, and operation of a 73-unit multifamily housing complex containing approximately 32,529 square feet. The parcel is actually, the project site contains a total of 5 parcels on 2.68 acres, located, as stated, on the south side of Commercial Road, approximately 700 feet east of Waterman Avenue, and it's located within the residential medium-high RMH zone. The public comment letter was received from 7th Street Development. They currently own the properties just to the north of the project site in the industrial light zoning. You can see the project site is currently vacant. There's very little vegetation or trees on site. The project proposes 4 different floor plans within a 3-story building and a 1,514 square foot clubhouse, a 440 square foot pool house, a barbecue area, outdoor fireplace, and 2 bar parks. 17 studio apartments, 36 one-bedroom apartments, and 22 bedroom apartments, one of which will be a manager's unit as contemplated for the project. There are a total of 130 parking spaces provided, and some of those are actually enclosed garages. You can see, again, the project site is vacant. This is basically looking from the southwest property near Steel Road, and then looking south from Commercial Road, and looking southeast from basically where the Telecu senior apartments are located. The enclosed parking is the parking, directly adjacent to the buildings, basically on the south, east, and west side. And then the additional parking is covered. The proposed landscaping is going to upgrade the site considerably. And as you can see, there are 4 different floor plans contemplated. This is for the studio, 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments. The elevations are fairly modern and well articulated. There's lots of variation in the roof line, facade, and color treatments. The Planning Commission, our recommendation is for the Planning Commission to adopt Resolution 2018-072 and find the approval of Development Permit Type P 18-05 to be categorically exempt from CEQA pursuant to Section 15332, infill development projects, and approve Development Permit Type P 18-05 based on the findings of fact and subject to the recommended conditions of approval. Before any motion or discussion is involved, I do have one correction for the resolution. There was reference to Kendall Drive, to upgrades to Kendall Drive. That was a typo. It should be Commercial Road. So that's been changed already. It's just not reflected in the reports that you have currently.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff at this time? All right, we're going to open up public comments. Can we please have you say your name and address for the taped record, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. David Molnarski, 413 McKay Drive, San Bernardino, California, representing Waterman West LLC, the applicant and the developer. We weren't provided with a copy of the public response or the letter that was submitted. Is there anything in there that we need to be aware of?
Can we provide the applicant with a copy?
Oh, okay. According to Ms. Powers, the property owners across the street were asking whether or not a traffic study was prepared, and we did do a scoping study with the city's traffic engineer. He reviewed all the information, and he cleared the project to the Planning Commission. As Ms. Powers indicated, the project is exempt from CEQA, so there was no other studies that were required. I believe this was the same action that the Commission took recently with the, is it the Ware Road project?
Yes.
Yeah, it was the same traffic consideration. So I think we're being treated equally and fair as the other project. We don't have any particular questions or presentation to make this evening. We really appreciate staff's hard work on this. We do have one clarification with regard to a condition. It appears on bottom of page 10 and the top of page 11, and it deals with overhead power lines. The site currently doesn't have any overhead power lines adjacent to Commercial Road. There is a Edison easement along the back portion of the property. Those power lines primarily exist to service the residential area to the south of this project. There's a series of overhead lines that service those buildings, so those power lines need to remain in place in order to continue to provide power and service to those buildings. So there's nothing on Commercial Road that we feel that we would need to underground either on our side of the road or on the opposing side of the road. Do you have any questions in particular about the project or that you would like us to answer at this time?
Yes, I actually have a question. You have here on the conditions of approval, that you're going to have regular maintenance and everything to keep the place looking nice and pretty. And you said that there's going to be a manager unit. Will the manager be living on the premises and be doing regular kind of checks, or
Yes.
Okay, all right, and then regular maintenance will be coming around and everything, cleaning and all of that.
Yeah, and I'd be a little remiss if I didn't indicate that this development group and this applicant is currently well invested in the Inland Empire. This is the same group that, if you're familiar with the donut hole over at Citrus Plaza, Circa 2020 and some of the market rate projects over there, same group, same ownership, same management. I think they're currently involved with upwards of 1,500 residential units within a 5-mile radius of this site, so they have a very broad presence with management, security, and also attention to detail, as Ms. Powers indicated, with the architecture.
I want to thank you guys for bringing this to the Inland Empire, to San Bernardino. I mean, I've seen the pictures. It looks beautiful. It seems like it'd be a really great addition here. And then just, to keep it nice and looking good and having the right people kind of going there, how is your vetting for, like, tenants and that? I don't know if we have a word into that, but, I want to make sure that this is beautiful and clean. So.
Well, like any residential project, you have rental requirements and fair and equal housing requirements for vetting applications. So I think, again, with the level of project this is and the management and the amenities, the price point, it hasn't been announced quite yet, but they run a very tight ship. Management is in-house. It's not a third-party vendor. So it's part of the family of companies that not only operate, manage, maintain. Over in the Redlands projects, they actually have concierge, trash pickup, all kinds of amenities to try to make the experience, a little bit nicer, because as you probably know, there hasn't been any new multifamily developed in this market for quite some time. So
no, that's why I was concerned, hoping that it would be kept nice and beautiful, and hopefully that would expand further into our city.
And quite frankly, we're looking for the city to do their part as well with regard to that neighborhood. Currently, Commercial Drive has restrictions for heavy commercial vehicles. So when this project gets constructed, we're going to add that signage and hopefully, create a safer environment for tenants and pedestrians. The units to the south of us, that's the school bus pickup point for many families and children. So enforcement, I think, is very important in taking care of this vacant piece of property. It has been a dumping ground and a place for some undesirable activity. There's a little liquor store, as you probably know, up on Waterman Avenue. It kind of sits on an island. So I believe with the construction of this project, and if the Weir Road project is built, it's going to be more residents, more eyes on the streets. I think that's going to make it a safer neighborhood for the existing residents and probably for some of the businesses that go dark across the street as well.
Perfect. And then that's all I have. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm looking at the item that was submitted by 7th Street Development. I do have a couple of questions. I'm trying to envision, I'm not so sure I know where Commercial Road is. Is this a street that intersects Waterman, north or south? Or I looked at that, but that...
Okay, so in reference, Redlands Boulevard is just about here, if you can imagine that. And then this is Waterman Avenue here, and then this is Commercial Road. Going down further, this is basically the end of Waterman Avenue, where you get into the city of Colton and then the city of Loma Linda to the east.
And this is, I think, a question for staff. What is the difference between a traffic analysis versus a traffic scoping?
If I may,
Oh, sorry.
there we go. If I may briefly address that, we do have Alex here from the Public Works Department that can provide more detail if needed. Essentially, when we receive a project, when it's first submitted, we ask them to complete a traffic scoping form. And basically, it's a listing of what's the proposed use, what are their hours of operation, and occupancy and those kinds of things. Based on that, and then they fill it out, then we utilize it's called the Institute of Transportation Engineers Land Use Codes Manual, and basically you cross-reference what the scoping form says to what the codes in this document, in this code book includes. Based on that, in this particular project, what the thresholds are is 50 trips in the morning hours, which is from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. From 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., and then 50 trips in the p.m. traffic or hours, which is 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. So obviously this is a nightclub, or excuse me, with his residence here. So in this particular case, there's only going to be 26 a.m. I'm still have my Beppis hat on. I'm sorry.
No yellow.
I'm thinking of that Shirley Temple that Mr. Penman was referring to. So we have 26 a.m. trips, and we have approximately 32 p.m. trips for this. In total, we have, over the course of the day, there will be approximately 397 total trips during the day. The threshold for that, per the engineer's manual, is 500 total per the day. So anytime you exceed those two totals, AM, PM, or total daily, that triggers your need for a traffic analysis, where you have to do traffic counts and so forth in the surrounding area. So in this particular case, when the traffic scoping form was submitted, reviewed by the traffic engineers, at that point it was determined that a traffic study was not required.
Those numbers that you're referring to on here, 26 and 32, you mean somebody actually stood on the corner and watched how many came out during those peak hours?
Again, they're not counts. These are, it's a matrix that's used, the manual, this ITE manual.
Mm-hmm.
It basically, it cross-references. It'll say, what's the land use? Is it a hotel? Is it a store? Is it a, what is it? Is it an apartment structure? And then so there's a table that you follow one column, one row, and it gives you the estimate.
If I could, oh, go ahead.
I think the impression that I'm getting is that it is a major development that which they're not arguing against. Everything is attractive. Everything is great. Okay. It seems that the commercial road is the only main road that would be servicing the people who move in and all the businesses that surround that area, and it is a considerable listing of other businesses and so forth. And so I don't see what is being asked to look into as an exception. In other words, it seems to make sense, in terms of the traffic, the anticipated traffic, the condition of the road, and maybe the other things that might be needed just to secure the safety of the residents and the businesses in terms of curbs, sidewalks, and lighting. And I guess that's what I would like to have addressed.
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Mojica, just to expand on what you just indicated. And again, this isn't our conclusion or finding, but our office, we're also traffic engineers, although we're not acting in that capacity in this case. But I think with the categorical exemption because of the infill housing, less than 5 acres, and the fact that we are in an urban infill situation, both Waterman Avenue, Barton Road, Commercial Drive, Steel Drive, they're all, Waterman and Barton Road are both in the city's circulation element and general plan, and they've already been studied for thresholds and for traffic volumes. And the manual that Mr. Mojica referred to is what information was provided. Residential trip generation usually averages anywhere from 7.5 to 10 trips per day. That's a formula that's used not only for multifamily but for any single family subdivision. So it's really a math equation. And it takes all the guesswork out of it. It takes all the enhancement of somebody saying this is my opinion. It's actually a technical study. So based upon all the information that was provided, and again, I think the project on Ware Road did the same process, and the same conclusion was reached on that project as well. And both the Planning Commission and the City Council approved that project. And that project also included a general plan amendment and I think some other applications. So, and with regard to the other traffic safety impacts, this project's going to be adding sidewalks, connecting to the Telecrew project, streetlights, and other public improvements. And Commercial Road is improved to the ultimate roadway design section at this time. So we appreciate the comments. In fact, we've done work with 7th Street Development. They're a very large company that deals in light industrial and office complexes throughout Southern California. So they're not, I don't think they're trying to be argumentative. I think they were just trying to make sure that some level of review was done by the city, and in fact it was.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then they asked the question about what is the current expected construction period, because it says on here in their letter that it said October 2018, expected to complete it by August 2019. Has that changed, or what is the?
Well, we're hopeful that this evening we can gain your approval, and Mr. Gillicala, the project architect, is in the audience along with Mr. Coberly and Mr. Tom Stoddard from ownership, and the architect's ready to submit his working drawings probably prior to the end of the month. We'd like to get our package in at the same time, so as soon as city staff can get us through the plan check process, they're working on their construction loan right now. So it might go a little past August, but I think it's definitely slated for 2019.
Mm-hmm.
Does the commission have any further questions for the applicant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker, Scott Thiol. Am I pronouncing that right? Tholey. Yes.
Mind if I let Craig go first?
No problem. We'll have a...
Follow up with some details.
No problem. Thank you. Can you please say your name and address for the taped record, sir?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Craig Furness, President of 7th Street Development. We own the buildings at 328 and 350 East Commercial Road, and we're also the manager of the Waterman Business Center Association, which is the 12-building, 200,000 square foot complex that you see just north of the Red Square there. It's a commercial development. It's fully occupied. And I'm here tonight to give you our comments. We've reviewed the staff report. We built the project. I think Mr. Lang's worked with us in the past. We're very proud of it. It offices 30 different businesses. There's over 300 people working there. Additionally, around that are a number of businesses as well. The businesses within that area, just to give you a few idea, we have Loma Linda School of Medicine, KCI Medical, Precision and Movement, Country Archer, Avid Physical Therapy, Arc Reprographics, Social Vocational Services, Farmers Insurance, Arjo Huntley, Eshelman Racing, CAV USA, and Fastenal. Those are just a few of them. Gate City Beverages in there. It's a thriving business park. And our primary access is at the Commercial Road in Waterman. That's basically how you get in there, which we will share with this complex. So we would like to say that overall, we see it as a high-quality design. We were impressed with the elevations. It appears to be adequately parked. And so we like those elements. We also like that it's market-rate housing. We do have concerns about two items. One is the traffic, and I'll just speak to that. The project, they're saying it's categorically exempt from CEQA. If you look at your staff report on page 5, in order to be categorically exempt from CEQA, approval of the project would not result in any significant effects related to traffic, noise, air quality, or water quality. So that's number 4. It has to meet these 5 criteria. And what we're saying is, we'd like to have the city take a look. There is a difference between an analysis and a scoping. The analysis takes in the site-specific factors, namely that you've got 30 businesses just in the Waterman Business Center, not even speaking to the ones around it, such as Gate City. So they would look at that actual intersection, understand the impacts of these 400 trips a day that are projected for the apartment complex. And then that would allow them to look and see if there's any mitigations necessary to make sure that we have a good flowing thing. Because, we're there for the long haul. We built that in 2007, and we've generated a lot of jobs, a lot of business there. We just want it to be thoughtfully considered. So we think it's time, we think it's a great project, but we really do think it's time to take a close look at that, that traffic and make sure that if there are, extensions, left turn pocket, or changes in the signal that are necessary there to make sure that traffic flows through there, not only for the benefit of the commercial businesses, but the residents as well. So that's speaking to the traffic. The other concern we have relates to street improvements. I attached a picture to your letter there, which will give you an idea, I think you'll see it here, of the condition of that street. Nothing's been done to that street since we bought the property and developed it in 2007, and it is failing. And I was pleased to hear that Ms. Powers indicated that on page 12 of the conditions of approval, they reference Kendall Drive. And if you're saying that's going to be Commercial Drive, then that would indicate that Commercial Road, and I don't know the limits of what they're going to do, but number one says that the city index provides a minimum standard for new streets of 4-inch AC over 8-inch base. Does that mean that they're going to improve the entire Commercial Road from Waterman to Steele? Because that's
No,
what that
it's
is.
just directly in front of their site.
But that is what that condition implies under Kendall Road there. It implies that the whole street's going to be improved, which would address the issue.
No, just in front of the project site.
So it'd be just half of the street in front of the project site, or the whole street, or what is it? Center line. To the center line. So the issue is, and maybe this is something for the city to address, is, we're going to put another 400 trips on that street. It's already failing. It's got major pothole issues. We need to do something about that. Maybe it's not an applicant responsibility, but it's got to be addressed, or you're going to affect all those businesses. So that's an important thing, the repair of the street. There's a few cleanup items we pointed out in there. We appreciate the clarification on the timing. And those are really our main concerns. We're not here to stop this project. We think it's according to the zoning. We just want it to be thoughtfully considered, and just as when we developed, we had to look at mitigations. We went through CEQA process. We did a traffic study, those kind of things. We would just encourage the city to properly consider, particularly the intersection at Commercial Road and Waterman. Also, when looking at the street improvements, I believe if you change that you've addressed street lighting. I had just ignored that section under Kendall Drive because it confused me, but we need to make sure we got sidewalks, we have street lights, all those conditions, because these are the conditions of approval that, as I understand it, that are going to be implemented for the project. Thank you for considering. I'm happy to answer any questions you have. I think we have some other businesses from our commercial development here.
Just for a little bit of clarification on some of the typos, we do use a lot of templates when, the information or the conditions are the same or similar from other projects, so we're not having to constantly rewrite new conditions. So occasionally reference to another project may slip in, but the conditions are for commercial roads. So we will have sidewalk and lighting, and the street will be improved in front of the project site.
Thank you. Scott Foley, did I say it right?
Yes, you got it.
Oh, good. Excellent.
Hi, I'm Scott Foley. I'm with 7th Street Development also. I will join in with the unanimous decision that it is a beautiful project. I mean, looking at the drawings, it's definitely going to add to the area. I just had a few notes on here on the CEQA review. And first of all, basically all the traffic that comes into that area comes in on Commercial Road. So for all of the businesses in that area, trucks, cars, everybody comes in on Commercial Road. So there is going to be an impact, a little bit more with residential users coming in and out. I found it a little interesting that the peak trips, and maybe you can clarify this for me, a total of them of 58 being morning and evening out of 397 total trips per day. It just didn't ring true to me that maybe the peak trips are more than that. Another point on here is they're listing intersections that could be impacted even more that are already rated to be bad intersections in the city, and one is at Hunts Lane and E Street. I traveled that tonight to come here from Waterman Business Center, and it's tough. So it's a lot of people don't notice it, but I took Commercial Road to Hunts Lane to E Street. That is a thoroughfare to go to I-10 West. And it says later in the report that none of those intersections are near an on-ramp. And that's the quickest, easiest way to get onto the I-10 West. So that is a concern. Craig had alluded to the fact that maybe bigger left turn pockets, changing light times. I don't know, but adding another 397 trips in that area at least needs to be addressed to see how to maximize the use of those roads. Also, a total agreement with, I've been watching Commercial Road just deteriorate, and along with the surrounding roads. Steel Road isn't good, Industrial Road isn't good. We're going to have more and more problems there if they're not addressed and fixed back up again. Otherwise, like I said, my hand is to you that it is a beautiful project. I did go look at Circuit 2020 to see what that was about, and that's very well done too. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you own a business there within that business complex?
No, I work for 7th Street Development.
7th Street,
Yeah,
okay.
with Craig, right.
Or then this is a question for 7th Street then. The businesses that are there, how long have they been there?
Since 2007.
2007.
Yeah, we both work for 7th Street. I own 7th Street Development. 7th Street Development owns 2 of the buildings of the 12. 7th Street Development is also the manager of the Commercial Business Association that manages all 12 of those buildings. If you look from kind of, I wish I had a pointer, but those 2 long buildings in the front of the 2 that we own, and then behind there's another 10 buildings. Some of them are joined. They look like 1 building, but they're actually 2. There's 10 more buildings, so there's a total of 12. And the other thing I'd like to point out, when we talk about the 2005 specific plan, they're talking about traffic studies were done back in 2005 on these studies. That's the last time these intersections, as I understand, I don't know, Mr. Mojica can probably correct me, but as I understand it, the specific plan was last updated in 2005, and those were the traffic studies at that time. So it's been a long time, and unlike maybe some other parts of San Bernardino, this part of San Bernardino is thriving, and we hope to keep it that way. I think hospitality is doing well as well. But we've got a lot of Loma Linda here. We've got a lot of businesses that service the hospitals. And so we do have truck traffic in and out, and we do have cars. So those are the concerns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do we have an opportunity to comment on the comments?
Oh, absolutely. Proceed.
Yeah, not to, and again, these gentlemen probably don't remember, but we have worked for their company in the past on other properties, and they were very professional and very good to work for. So again, I hold their company in the highest regard. They're definitely good at what they do. But I just want to reiterate a couple of things. One is with regard to the maintenance of the streets. I mean, we all know that the city streets all need repair and maintenance. And as Ms. Powers indicated, we're going to do our part to rehabilitate, as is typical with any project within the frontage of the property. What the city does with revenues that are generated through gas tax and other programs that go into the city's CIP program, this might be one of the areas that they may want to target, or at least have some information brought forward to the Planning Commission of what is expected in the surrounding neighborhood. With regard to the truck traffic, I mean, that really, besides the age of the streets, it's really the heavy use from some of the adjacent properties. There's, again, 18-wheelers running up and down that street, and that takes quite a toll on a roadway. With regard to some of the queuing and other aspects, I mean, all of these intersections are built to the master plan improvement level. They're signalized, they have queuing lanes. Increase in queuing lanes can occur at any time. That's really a situation where the city could go ahead and take a look at that. And maybe because of truck traffic, maybe they should increase some of those queuing lanes. But again, that's beyond the scope and breadth of our project. And with regard to just the CEQA review, we followed the same statutes as any other infill project would follow. And the information that was generated based upon the same traffic statistics that both the city and the county and Sandbag, or at least the San Bernardino Transit Authority uses. So I know it's kind of dry and mundane, but these statistics are incorporated throughout every project. And obviously, the project that they're referring to north of us had a much greater threshold with regard to analyzation than a 3-acre infill. So we think we followed all the rules. We provided the information. We're paying our fair share, and we'll also be paying traffic mitigation fees to the city, which they can use for purposes such as roadway improvements and other things. So we're just, again, hopeful that you can support the project and give us a favorable vote tonight. So thank you.
Chair and Commissioners, good evening. Just to clarify about the scoping area that we do for the projects, it's project specific. So we look at the project itself, and the scoping is determined if there is enough traffic that will trigger a traffic report. In this situation, as Oliver have mentioned, the numbers did not trigger the traffic study for this project. If we look at a bigger area, commercial, it might, but for this residential, for that project itself, it did not trigger it. So we did not ask for that. Sorry. And just to let the applicant and the businesses know that is it commercial? Commercial road is in this year's CIP, and it will be improved. So before the end of, I'm thinking maybe like April or March or April of 2019, we'll be rehabbing that road completely.
Well, that's good to hear, I think. And that's, why didn't you come up sooner? You know, your name's gonna go on my list, okay? And I appreciate, David, your comments about wanting to improve, because whether it's scoping or whether it's a traffic analysis, the bottom line is the condition of commercial road. That's what it sounds like to me. And the reason why I asked 7th Street, you know, how long have the businesses been there, because these are viable businesses. We want to keep them. They've been there longer. You're moving in, so you got to be a good neighbor. You know, they want you, as they have already said. And since they've been there longer and have made the observations in terms of the traffic, their businesses coming and going and so forth, I am inclined to consider what it is that they're requesting. And if we're not going to do, because I was going to ask, well, what do we have to do a traffic analysis and see if we need more data? But I'm not so sure that's the real issue. The real issue is the condition of that commercial road. If it stayed as a scoping, I mean, is that the bottom line? Would you like to see the improvements as Public Works is talking about, as the commitment that the developer for this new project is hoping to cooperate with? Mm-hmm.
So that is very good news. There's two distinct issues. The street improvements, which would be addressed by the resurfacing of that street. So that's good news. The other issue and the difference, again, between how we see a scoping traffic study and an analysis is a scoping study doesn't look at specific intersections, doesn't do traffic. It just does the scoping based on that use and figures out traffic counts. Whereas what we're saying is, you know, Commercial Road in Waterman is a very big intersection for us, and it could be impacted. So a traffic analysis would look at that specific intersection and others impacted, and then add on the traffic and look at mitigation measures if they were required. It's possible that maybe it'll work. I'm not a traffic engineer. It sounds like he is, and they know something about that. But we have done a number of developments, and we know enough to be concerned here.
Just to address that comment, the signal light that is at Commercial and Waterman right now, it's function at level of service of C. And adding the additional traffic from the proposed project will not affect the signal light that much. But we will look into it, and we'll address, we'll look at with the extra traffic. We'll do the analysis, and if it's needed, any adjustments, we'll do it.
Can you speak to how you know it's a traffic level C? When was that announced?
My name is Alex Keisha. I'm the city engineer,
Yes.
and I have an idea about all my signal lights in the city. And I know that how they function. And that is when the project came to us, I had my traffic engineer analyze it and tell me what is the level of service for it.
Does the commission have any further questions? Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? I see no additional members of the public wishing to speak on this item. We're going to close public comments. Does the commission have any further questions for staff?
Question for our city engineer, just clarification. You elaborated on that expansion in terms of scoping to include the intersection there. How would you pursue that exactly? Just so that we have some sort of resolution to some of these concerns that were just brought up per Mr. Fergus' comments. How would you go about implementing that in terms of looking into the level of service? I think you mentioned that.
Yes. Well, we have traffic counts that we do regularly within the city, and we have an idea about every signal light and what the level of service is, because at the end of the day, if we have a service level of service lower than a D, we would like to see how we can improve it. Maybe we can add a phase to a signal light. Maybe we can add timing to a signal light. So we have an idea about this. So when projects like this comes in, I have my traffic engineer analyze that intersection, and he tells me, well, this is without the project. This is actually, this signal light act at that level. Adding the traffic that is expected from the traffic according to the scoping will make it either the same, less, and then if it's less, then we have to address why is it less, and how can I make it back to the same level of service that it is before the project.
So assuming worst case scenario, if it were to drop to like a D level, what would be some of the methodologies to go about fixing that?
It could be anything between timing, maybe, most of the signal lights within the city act at 90, 80 seconds. We can make it higher, we can make it lower. Maybe, modify the signal light to add lane, turn lanes. It depends on what the traffic signal have and what doesn't have.
Does that answer your questions, Mr. Fergus? I know you brought up some of the intersection issues, and I don't know if that would provide clarity in terms of some of these issues that you brought up. So it sounded to me that the city is fixing the alligator issues pursuant to your picture, and then the city engineer appears at least resolve the concerns about the intersection. I just want to make sure that's been addressed, because he did elaborate on the project scoping in terms of the methodology to arrive to, or in terms of no significant impact.
Yes, we have other businesses here that, I don't know if they're going to speak or not, but there are other businesses here present tonight. My concern, and what we normally do is, in our developments, is there's a study of the intersections. Then they look at our impact on those intersections as well as surrounding developments. And based on those impacts, a traffic engineer does a study and gives us specific requirements to mitigate the things. If it's not it's not going to take it to a level D intersection, then there may be no mitigation. But as Alex said, there may be, extended left turn pockets, there may be other things. So what I don't understand is, is that going to be a condition of approval of this project? Usually there's a specific mitigation that's required after the study. So it's, I guess they don't really know what the mitigations is. Is there a process to this? Is there
Process to, I'm sorry.
like in a CEQA project, we do a traffic study. There's a list of mitigation measures generated by the traffic engineer. The city then makes those a set of conditions of approval for us, and then we go forward with our development. Here, there's no traffic study, so how would you develop the mitigation measures and make those conditions of approval for this project?
Well, at this point for this project, there's no mitigation measure for traffic because there was not a traffic report required for this project at this point of time. So there is no mitigation measure that added to the conditional approval because of that.
If I may, Commissioners, so as Alex indicated, we did complete our analysis on the project. We used professional publications from the Institute of Traffic Engineers, and that's what we rely on. And so we had that information tabulated, and the data that came up with these trip generations in the morning and the evening and total for the day. Our recommendation is based on that. And Traffic Engineer and Public Works, their conditions of approval are based on those findings of the various analysis that's done, including the scoping form. And that's our recommendation, that we believe that it was done properly and adequately. But it's up to the Planning Commission to decide. That's why it's a discretionary action. And so at that point, you could.
Thank you, Mr. Oliver. I was just curious if the city engineer, I know you've said that you would look into this matter in terms of the signal timing. Would that be something that in page 12, as part of that commercial road, that we add some sort of reference that maybe timing and the level of service be reviewed to ensure that it would not impact that in any way? I'm not certain if you are sure that would not impact. That's what I'm hearing. So
Yes, there is no mitigation measure that we need to add to the conditional approval at this point of time. What I said is maybe I'll try to explain it better. When projects like this came in with a commercial area, mixed use of residential, commercial, I usually and I ask the traffic engineer when he do his scoping and determining if there is any traffic needed. One of the things that I ask him to do is look at the intersection, the closest signalized intersection, to see if there is anything that we need to do if the projects come in.
thank you for added information on that. So you
Yeah.
did look at the intersection?
We did look at it. and
Okay,
then
it wasn't elaborated or expanded
I'm
or
sorry.
included in your comments?
Yes, we
So
did
you
look at it
that.
before the project, and then after we did the scoping, we added the traffic that is going to be generated from this project to see if there is any impact on that intersection, and it was none.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Ken? Oh, there was a hand up. Go ahead.
We're going to open up public comment. Again, can you please say your name and address for the tape record, sir?
Sure. My name is Jeremy White. We are at 379 and 395 East Industrial. We're part of the Waterman Project Center. We think it's a great idea to have this project be built, but we have the same concerns that have been brought up already about the traffic and the state of the roads. We have heavy trucks that go through that area on a regular basis. I drive that road multiple times a day, and adding in additional cars and traffic makes me not only concerned about the weights and the state of the streets, but also some safety issues that I've just personally encountered where there are unprotected lefts, and if you're trying to cross over Waterman, had many times where people almost crash right into me. So increasing the traffic seems like it'll increase the likelihood of something bad happening. So if there was analysis done, I think that would be great for us to see. I just didn't see that in any of the documentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have one more question. Okay.
Since Alex Alex, since you've been up and given us good news about the road being improved, Waterman North to get onto any freeway, is there anything being done to address that? If I leave Waterman Business Center at 5:30 in the evening, I'm sitting on the Waterman overpass for 15 minutes just to get to the 10.
Waterman or any road that in the city that is crosses a freeway is a Caltrans. Unfortunately, they own it. And any mitigation or any issue that we have with them, we just let them know what is the problem. And then it will be up to them to schedule how they're going to fix it or address the issues.
Well, I'm talking about getting to the on-ramp. So for instance, on Waterman, when you go north on Waterman, if you want to get on the 215, there's a left turn lane under the bridge, but no signal.
Okay.
And you have to sometimes wait for 20, 30 cars before one or two can turn left. Is there any thought to either a signal there or changing timing of the hospitality signal?
Is that is 210, 215? And
Yeah, the
and
on-ramp I'm talking about will only take you to the 215 north and south.
Yes, and I believe that is Caltrans have a project to install a signal light at that off-ramp.
Okay.
And I believe that is the project is to be completed within the next 2 to 3 months. The problem with traffic signals, unfortunately, is in order for us to have the traffic pole, that is, where the traffic it takes 22 to 28 weeks to deliver that because they have to be certified by Caltrans and then delivered to the site. And we are having a project right now to install that signal light. But unfortunately, we're waiting for the poles to be delivered.
Okay, if it's in the works, that's all
Yes,
I'm looking for.
it's in the works.
If we're going to have another 400 cars, and who knows how many of them will be making that same route.
Yes, it is in the work.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any? Oh, my apologies. Commissioner, go ahead.
I don't know if there's anybody else in the audience before I make my comments, or is there anyone else from the, okay. I have a concern, I guess, and something that Commissioner Aaron said, and the gentleman's over here. How do we know what to mitigate if we haven't done the traffic analysis? And I would recommend that we do the traffic analysis. This is a major project as I see it, and I think everybody on both sides agrees that it's a good project, but we want it to be done correctly. And I also don't think, although you said, the city at some point is going to fix Commercial Road, I think they feel uncomfortable because there is no, as somebody said, there's no documentation. There isn't a time frame as to when this is going to be done. So I would suggest we do the traffic analysis before or as a condition of approving this.
Just to the Commercial Road rehabilitation is in the CIP document that was presented to you guys 6 months ago. So Commercial Road is on the CIP for this year. And it should be delivered before the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30, 2019. It's actually in design right now.
My recommendation would be that we do the traffic analysis.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that per the city engineer comments, that a CIP has been slated for 2019 to improve Commercial Road, and the traffic, although it's traffic scoping study, not a traffic impact study, I just want to make certain that that scoping process included looking at the intersection at Commercial Road and Waterman Avenue. So, and I think I've heard that said tonight. So it sounds to me that the city has met its obligations in terms of looking at the intersection, and it appears, or it's apparent that the level of service would not be affected. And so, therefore, a traffic impact analysis is not required. So we're following this methodology in terms of ITE, in terms of looking at a broader scope and not project specific. And I've heard that from the city engineer in terms of the additional information. So it's not project specific, looking at the residential 73 units in terms of traffic trip generation, but it also expanded in terms of looking at other intersections or intersections, maybe just at the Waterman and Commercial Road only for this site. And so I'm certainly satisfied with the process, what the city engineer has done. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions that the commission needed to address? I have a question for staff as well. With the additional 400 trips per day that is being added, although the analysis is not required, do you guys feel that it would be warranted on the basis of the additional wear and tear that will be occurring on the street?
Yes, go ahead.
I would just say I don't think it's warranted at this time since the street will actually already be approved this following year, probably before the project is even finished. So.
Okay, excellent. So those capital improvements are slated for April 2019. So.
I'm expecting that construction will start April 2019, yes.
Okay. Excellent, and I believe that will help. All right. Are there any other additional questions from the commission at this time? We close public comments? We did?
You need to.
Okay, thank you. See, wanted to make sure. At this time, we're going to formally close public comments. I will entertain a motion.
I'll second the motion with clarification on page 12 that Kendall Drive be strike and replaced with commercial road to ensure that these improvements would be a project site specific on commercial road. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a motion from myself and a second from Mr. Lang. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Congratulations. Moving on, agenda item number 5, a request to allow the reduction of the required street side yard setback from 15 feet to approximately 18 inches in order to construct a swimming pool and allow the reduction of the required street side yard setback from 15 feet to 0 feet in order to construct a 6-foot-high fence along the street side yard property line for an existing single-family residence. The project site is located at 171 East Marshall Boulevard on the southeast corner of East Marshall Boulevard and North Sepulveda Avenue. I hereby open public hearing item number 5. Can we please have the staff report?
Time out, please. The next item is the zone variance 18-02 for the property located at 171 East Marshall Boulevard. This actually is a situation that we're trying to remedy kind of through the processing. Typically, when an applicant wants to install a swimming pool in their backyard or in their property, it goes straight from the counter to the plan checker for the structural review of the pool. In the plans that were submitted, it was not clear or indicated that it was on a corner, and so that's what was so the plan checker at the time off-site did not verify whether or not it was on a corner. So a permit was issued, and the pool was under construction. What happens later on was he decided that he needed to, or was required to put fencing in because he tore down the fence. And so wanted to show, the first slide shows the existing condition. This is how it stood. There was a fence. What happens a lot of times is people believe that where the fence is, or they believe that sometimes the property line is where the curb line is. We're not sure where the property line is. In this particular case, the site plan that was provided, which is in the back of your package, showed that the setback, there was a 7.5 foot or 8 foot setback when it was actually from the curb. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to remedy this particular situation. So just kind of wanted to give you a little bit of background there. Frankly, it's something that we're trying to resolve, and the variance provided us with that opportunity to take this error and correct it. The zoning of the property, surrounding property, is residential suburban. And this is zoning map. This is the aerial. So if you look at the property, the front yard is facing towards Marshall. That's where the door is. It essentially does not have a rear yard. If you could look at the bottom of the highlighted red square, that's the rear property line. There's a detached garage that goes all the way to the rear property line, which is allowed by code to have zero setback. There's a small separation between the garage and the residence, and so essentially the only area where they had as a yard, if you will, was along the corner between the house and the street side yard, which is on Sepulveda. So they've installed the pool. That's where they've installed the pool, is in let's see, in this location in here. That's where the pool is, and so this is looking towards the property. This is on the corner of Sepulveda and Marshall. This is looking east on Marshall Boulevard. The subject property would be on the right-hand side, which is over here. So again, all single-family residences. This is looking west on Marshall. Subject property is over here. This is looking north on Sepulveda, and the site is over here on this corner. And this is looking south on Sepulveda. Again, this is the site plan that was submitted and the permit was issued on. As you can see, this is indicated as the property line here, and it gives some dimensions here in terms of how far it is. And again, this is actually where the fence is, and the fence was actually not on the property line. So we just kind of wanted to discuss some of the items. Our code requires, and one of the oversights as well is a common error or oversight is that a pool, whether or not a pool is a structure, whether it should comply with the setback requirements. Our code requires a 15-foot setback from the property line if you're on a corner side yard, and so if it were a patio or a concrete slab, it doesn't have a setback requirement, but it is a structure. And so that's, so essentially the corner of the pool here, where my shaky hand is, where the light is, that needs to be 15 feet from the property line. It's actually less, it's about 7.5 feet from the property line. And then the fence, the building code requires that if you have a swimming pool, you have to have a minimum 5-foot high fence surrounding the pool for safety purposes. And so what happened was the pool was installed. The existing wooden fence that you saw on the prior slide was removed to gain access to construct the pool. So when they came in for their permit for the fencing as required by the building code, that's when it was verified that, hey, you're on a corner, you don't meet the setbacks and so forth. And so that's what initiated the requirement for the variance. And so our recommendation is to remedy this, and looking at the properties, again, single-family area, we believe that there is a special circumstance as it relates to this property because, as noted on the slide, essentially the only yard area was the front yard and then this side yard here. So we felt that there was a unique situation because it was a corner lot and the limitations of where usable recreational space could be used. Our recommendation is for approval. I'd be glad to answer any questions to try to clarify the circumstances, and that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the commission have any questions for staff at this time? Commissioner?
Yeah, if this is approved, which I don't particularly care for, but what do we do to prevent this from happening again? This is going to set a precedence, and I can't agree with that. You set a precedence now, and we're going to destroy neighborhoods, the looks of the neighborhoods and everything else. So what do we do? I mean, someone else is going to come through and say, well, you did it before. What can we do to prevent that?
What we, again, with our findings for the variance, what are the special circumstances and conditions to the site that aren't the same on other properties? That's kind of the threshold. And if you looked at the conditions or the findings in the resolution, so like I mentioned earlier, I believe that the unique situation, and when someone else says, well, I want to do it too, we would look to see whether or not they had a limitation on where they can put a pool in the first place. Frankly, you know, in the perfect world, this would have been addressed before the permit was issued for the pool. That's really the thrust of the situation here. You know, this is almost an in process or after the fact, you know, kind of a request. But we stand by our findings that it is a unique situation. You know, if there wasn't a garage back here in the rear yard, or there was more room there, then obviously yes, you have a place where you can put the the swimming pool, and then the kind of the limitations. And so, like I said, it's I understand what you're saying in terms of a precedent, you know, on this. I mean, it certainly is not normal practice. This is something that, you know, I've been doing this for a few decades, and it comes across once in a great while. This is one of the rare times that it's happened. But you know, it's just frankly just an error in the process, and we're just trying to remedy that at this point, without just saying go ahead and build it and we'll pretend that it didn't happen. We can't do that.
I bring that up because in my neighborhood, there has been more than one occasion where setbacks were not followed or they were fought, and a lot of old CCNRs kicked in, and it was really a mess. So I think, because I've done a little bit more research in that without getting into it, I think that it would help. It wouldn't be a bad idea for this commission or for department to revisit some of these setbacks, because that's part of the integrity of a neighborhood. And there's some areas, I won't bring it up now, but that I was involved in that just, somebody wants to put a pool in, they see that nice big lot sitting right there. Why not? And so that's my comment.
Thank you for that. And if I may add, this is how the house looks now. This is how it's been for a while, existing condition. This fence has been there. This is the fence that they're going to replace, and essentially it's going to be replaced. I think it's going to move towards the house about a foot from where it is right now. So if it makes a difference in your thought or opinion of this, essentially, should this application be approved, it's going to look exactly the same. The difference is that there's going to be a pool on the other side of that fence, but for you looking over the fence, you wouldn't know that there was a pool inside there. And the fence this fence is going to be replaced, still going to be wood, still that. So this is the general aesthetics that will remain as what's existing now.
So
where is the 25-foot setback on the front?
So this is the front yard. So this is the front property line. So this is the setback here. And I believe it's greater than 25 feet in that area. The prevailing setback is right here.
So you can't go past prevailing setback?
No.
I don't think so, but never mind. Okay, I understand that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Through the chair. I have a question. Staff. There's one part of this I don't quite understand. The request is to allow the reduction of the required street yard setback from 15 feet to approximately 18 inches. So that means we're bringing the property line from 18 inches from the curb?
No. The property line, the property is 10 feet from the curb face.
Okay.
All right? And then so basically the way the code is written, if we take the curb face as a point of reference, you go 10 feet, then you go 15 feet for your setback, and that's where the edge of your pool can be. So basically 25 feet from the curb face is the literal interpretation of our code. Likewise, if you wanted to put a fence that was above 4 feet, you also had to be that 25 foot from the curb face, 15 feet from the property line. And so what we're doing is because the way that the pool was constructed, the dimensions that were provided, and once we did the math and the measurements, it works out that the edge of the pool, the way it was constructed, is 18 inches, approximately 18 inches from the property line.
Okay.
And so then they're going to put the wood fence on the property line as being requested here, proposed. And so there'll be that 18-inch gap between the fence and the edge of the pool.
Okay, so we're dealing with a few issues here. We're changing the setback, but we're also allowing a higher than 4-foot fence be put up to accommodate the pool requirements.
That is correct.
I read this yesterday, and along with the staff report, and drove by the location. I don't see a real big problem with it. I understand how we arrived here. But the looks of the wood fence to me, I think if we're going to accommodate this, I would consider upgrading that fence to a block wall, because it is so close to the sidewalk, or there is no sidewalk. It's so close to the curb. I think it'd be a little safer than having a wood slat fence that could be problematic and somebody enter through walking down the street. So that would be my request.
The applicant has, through our conversations on this, the applicant has stated that his preference would be a block wall. My response to that was, I wanted to try to maintain how it looks now, today. So like I showed you in the earlier slide, how it looks yesterday is how it's going to look tomorrow with the same fence. And so if you're driving up and down the street, like I said, you wouldn't know that a pool was on the other side of the fence, or that anything had changed unless you've been watching it happen along the ways. And so that was kind of my initial preference, was to say, well, let's try to keep it as the same as possible, kind of a thing. But I believe his request was, he wanted to put a block wall.
Yeah, as of right now, you have a couple slats loose in that fence, it looks like, or could become loose. I think a block wall would be much safer and actually more aesthetic to the neighborhood personally.
We did not stipulate or regulate that. We just said fencing. But if we want to allow, if that's the will of the commission, we can certainly say that a block wall would be allowable if that's the wish of the commission.
Commissioner Sanchez, did you have a question?
I was just going to comment again like that. I had the same kind of need of clarification from Sepulveda to the property like that. I thought it was going to be to the curb, so with his question, I was kind of clarified that there would still be that space there.
That's correct.
How far will that wall be then from?
It'll be 10 feet from the curb.
Oh, okay. So
where the property line is.
Okay, perfect.
Mr. Chairman. Commissioner Lane.
Thank you. I think I've heard you said that this qualifies for unique circumstances under the variance finding request. Isn't unique circumstances would be applicable to maybe topo or lot configuration and not relating to, and I'm not so certain if inadvertently issuing a building permit would qualify for a unique circumstance.
Well, we're
in
not
this
using
case.
that finding. My unique circumstance was with the location of the existing structures, in that typically rear yards or the rear of a property has a rear yard, an open space, where we require the rear yard setbacks. In this particular case, the rear yard is occupied by the detached garage, and so I felt that the limitations of this property were created by the existing structures that have been on there, the house and the garage.
Is pool considered an accessory structure?
Yes, it is.
And if so, an accessory structure, it's a permitted use in the side setback?
No, it's not a permitted use. It's a structure, and so therefore it's bound by setback requirements, specifically the street side and the front side.
Thank you. Does the commission have any further questions for staff? At this time, we're going to, okay, perfect. We're going to open up public comments at this time. I have a speaker slip for Mr. Penman.
Thank you, James Penman, 221 East Marshall. New stuff installed since, not since, this came after I left. I'm a neighbor, about a block east on Marshall, and I drive past this location almost every day, and when I got the notice in the mail from planning, I paid a little more attention to it. And I think you need to approve the variance, to approve it for reasons I'm going to explain. But I think you need to get into this, and I asked the chair to indulge me in the time to try to do it. I see a number of legal problems and a number of legal solutions. First off, I think Mr. Mojica does an excellent job, and I think his department does an excellent job. I think what's happened here is an exception to the excellent job. I think this is a fairly significant series of errors. I don't fully understand, not saying it's not allowed, but I don't fully understand, even if it's discretionary, allowing a swimming pool on the side of a house facing a street. Maybe it's allowed, I don't know, I haven't looked at that section of the code since I left the city attorney's office. I don't understand, I guess, why that was approved as it was. I don't understand if the permit was issued for the pool, why the city didn't do the calculations on the setback. I assume there must have been progress inspections on the pool, so I don't understand why during the process inspections that somebody did not discover this problem. Cities are immune from liability for actions of code enforcement, planning, and so forth, unless something happens later on, like a traffic accident or the Hampshire flood, for example, where the city had approved putting housing below a dam. Right before I became city attorney in '87, the jury came back with a multi-million-dollar verdict against the city and county for that, which is a throwback to a question that the chairman had of the previous matter. Something may not be required, but is it reasonable? Is it advisable? And we learned from Hampshire flood that it is reasonable and advisable very often, even if you're not required to do it, to do it. And that's part of your job as a citizens planning commission, is you have a certain amount of oversight over the city departments. And asking the questions that you asked today are relevant and appropriate. Sometimes you need to go deeper and you need to get guarantees. Sometimes you need to approve items with contingency factors, such as we approve this subject to the city setting a time period to fix this road. This is an example. Now, that is not the case here. These poor people are, as near as I can tell, pretty much innocent. They did what they were supposed to do. They went to the city. They got the permits. Permit was issued to put this swimming pool in. Somebody missed the fact that it was on a corner, and I'm not fully understanding the context of that, but it's probably not important that I do. I was trying to think in terms of if it hadn't been on a corner but there was a house immediately west of it instead of a street, the difference there. But I do think that you've got a potential liability problem, and I think that Commissioner Queel wisely saw that and addressed that in his comment about a block wall. We've had situations in the city many times where corner houses have been hit by cars in traffic accidents. And a house is a certain distance from the street, which gives it some protection. But when you move a pool between a house and a street, you've got a little bit more of a potential problem if a car comes and jumps the curb and goes through the wood fence and goes into the pool, and maybe somebody in the car gets hurt, maybe somebody in the pool gets hurt, maybe both people get hurt. And in that type of a design defect type situation, even though the city isn't constructing it, I'm using that term somewhat loosely, and I'm sure the city attorney would be quick to jump on me for it, because it's not a city designing it. But with the approvals that you've given, and my thinking back to the Hampshire flood case, I can see where the city could get into some serious problems legally if this variance isn't granted. But I would strongly encourage you, and I was relieved to hear that the owner said that he would like to put up a block wall, and I think that would be advisable for you to require that a block wall be put up for that reason. So if the car does jump the curb at some point, it's less likely to get to the pool area if it hits a block wall, and the city is less likely to be liable, and plus the block wall might, well, given how effective airbags are, would probably protect the people in the car and the people in the pool as well. I'm not sure a wooden fence is going to do that. As to Commissioner Wilbert's concern about a precedent, not every time the city approves something does it become a legal precedent. People say that, well, it's a precedent because it's already been done. If it's done under unique circumstances, as Mr. Mujica indicated, which this is, these are very unique circumstances, it is not going to, in my opinion, be upheld by a court as a legal precedent. Special circumstances apply here. Commissioner is correct. Normally, when you're talking about unique circumstances, you're talking about topography. That's what the code, both state law and the city's code, which has adopted the state law, and the words are in there exactly. I forget how many there are, 4 or 5, maybe 7, I can't remember, but there's a list of them, but one of them is topography, and my recollection was all of them had to be approved. But this is, you're in a bailout situation here, and for the city's sake, for the taxpayers' sake, I don't think you've got a whole lot of options before you. Do you legally? Can you vote no? Yes, you can, but I don't know why you'd want to expose the city to potential liability. It's not liability from the property owner, because like I say, you've got immunity on that, but this is a corner house, and we've had a lot of accidents over the years at corner houses with cars actually getting into the house. And those, of course, those didn't have a swimming pool between the house and the curb. So I would encourage you to approve this. As a resident, at first when I had trouble reading the notice, I wasn't sure if the swimming pool was in the side yard or the front yard, and I certainly would be opposing it if it was on the front yard. But that's not the case. And things have reached the point in our city where that 4-foot fence maximum may have to be looked at because a lot of us, including those of us in the 100 and 200 block of East and West Marshall, are having a lot of problems with transients, homeless people coming onto our properties. And for years, it's been my understanding that those properties are supposed to stay without fences in the front at all. And you just look at the landscape, maybe broken by a hedge or something. But I've thought, maybe it's something, Judy and I have discussed it, Mrs. Pinman that is, maybe at some point we may need to ask to put up a 6-foot fence in our front yard instead of a 4-foot fence. I found a homeless woman sleeping on my lawn, 4 feet from the curb and 3 feet from my driveway into my property. When I asked her if she needed help and she said no, and I asked her to leave, she told me that I wasn't God and she might come back and burn my house down. That makes you want to think about putting a fence up in your front yard, maybe a little higher than 4 feet. Anyway, I hope you approve this for the reasons at least that I've indicated. The city needs this protection, and it's an unfortunate circumstance, but everybody makes mistakes. My office made mistakes when I was city attorney. I mean, I'm not here to pound on the city departments or the city people. I'm sure that Mr. Mojica has probably taken care of that, and somebody probably had some problems sitting down for a few days after this was discovered. But I always encourage you to do your oversight responsibility, but this time I encourage you to do your oversight responsibility, but also protect the city by granting this variance. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Penman. Are there any other members from the public wishing to speak on this comment? Oh, absolutely. Please say your name and address for the tape record. Have you been sworn in, sir? Okay, we'll get you sworn in now.
Do you solemnly affirm that the testimony you are about to give before this body will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do. Well, I learned, Hank Mitchell, 3766 Belmont Avenue. I learned a lot tonight about property lines. Where I live, your property line is probably where your pasture fence is, right along the curb. And the way I read this, it looked like it was going to be putting a fence right on the curb. And I apologize to you, Mr. Mojica, because I fired off a letter to him, said, we can't have this. We can't have this. So I drove by the property today, and he was out raking his leaves and everything. I was a white van that drove by, and I just wanted to see this. The wooden fence, I'm all for him putting a block fence up for his security, too. I would want security. Wood fence, when I was a kid, we had a pool next door. We could look through the fence, and a lot of times we threw things over because we knew there was a pool there. With a block wall, he has a sense of security. And like Jim said, we've got people wandering around the neighborhoods that probably should be somewhere else out of town. So, apology. I learned a lesson. And let him have his block wall. He'll probably put up a block wall that's not just a block wall, because he's pretty proud of what he's doing. So, but I want to say that. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Is the applicant opposed to adding that condition that the wall be a block wall instead of the wooden structure?
No, I prefer a block wall.
Okay. Does the commission have any other further questions for members of the public or staff? Okay, we are going to close public comments, and I will entertain a motion.
I'll second that.
All right. We need to first have a motion put forward.
Motion put forward.
Okay. All right, well, I'll put the motion forward to approve agenda item number 5.
It's already.
We have it already pre-seconded by Commissioner Sanchez. So all in favor?
Clarification, I'm sorry, before you vote, I just want to make sure that a condition is included as acknowledged by the applicant or the owner here, this, confirming that a block wall would be constructed. So,
Actually, if you look on the resolution, page 5, condition number 1, down on the 4th line, it says shall construct a 6-foot high. It just says fence. We could substitute the word fence for wall if you'd like.
yes.
Block wall.
Block wall?
Block wall
Okay.
for that clarity. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion approving agenda item number 5, including the modifications as stated by staff.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Again?
Next, Planning Commissioner's reports and announcements.
Oh, tomorrow night at 6, there will be the Ho-Ho Parade. They'll be stopping at Lytle Creek Park. So if you have children, bring them over. There's going to be movie in the park. There's going to be entertainment, music, arts and crafts, and then there will be pictures with Santa. So bring your children.
Excellent. That was actually my announcement too, so I'm glad you got that out there. Are there any other announcements or reports from the commission? If not, we'll move to the director's report.
I have nothing to add. Just wanted to wish everyone a happy holiday, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. At this time, I would like to adjourn this meeting. I would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting until our next regular scheduled Planning Commission meeting, Tuesday, January 8th, 2019. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you.